Good evening and a very warm welcome to Television Tonga's news package for tonight. Making headlines, Free Wesleyan Church members of Atata embraced the name bestowed upon their church by Her Royal Highness the Princess Latofupeka. Prime Minister's office yet to confirm whether the Minister of Finance and National Planning has tendered his resignation, and a Kale warning in force for Move All. These and more stories later on in this bulletin, together with the latest news from around the region, sports, international scene, and the latest weather. Here's your news in details for tonight. Her Royal Highness Princess Latofupeka Tukaho has emphasized the background of the name that she has given for the newly built church of the Free Wesleyan Church in Atata, which is for Kavakihe'eiki, or vows to God. She revealed this in her keynote speech at the church's official opening ceremony yesterday on the island. Also attending the ceremony was her brother, His Royal Highness Prince Ata, who's the estate holder of Atata. Emma Jane Vea tells you more.
The guest of honor at the ceremony for the new Free Wesleyan Church building in Atata was Her Royal Highness Princess Latofupeka Tuku'aho. She cut the ribbon at the entrance door of the new church building. The princess then opened the door of the church with the key before unveiling the commemorative plaque of the building. Following the guest of honor was the island's estate holder, His Royal Highness Prince Ata. After the official opening of the building, their Royal Highnesses led the church members and all guests inside the church for a sermon and blessing of the newly constructed building. In addressing the congregation, Princess Latofupeka emphasized the vital message behind the new name of the church, which is vows to God. Our prayer is our vow to God for him to keep and win the people's hearts forever. Also, an oath to God is kept by the people, as God is the ruler of everlasting life. I'm pleased to name the church building Fuakavakihe Otua, which means vows or an oath to God. I wish that all the prayers heard in this church will support our drive to keep our vows to God. The Free Wesleyan Church General Secretary Reverend Dr. David Nahavea led the sermon and blessing of the new church. The President, Reverend Dr. Ahia, was also present at the ceremony. After the formalities, their Royal Highnesses and guests were invited to a special luncheon hosted by the church members. The island's estate holder, Prince Ata, delivered the welcome speech. I'd like to thank Princess Latofupeka for coming today and honouring my people by attending this event. We're pleased with the name that you've given for our new church building, which reminds us that it's vital for us to keep our vows to God. During the luncheon program, the church members performed various traditional entertainment for their Royal Highnesses and the guests. More than 20 families are members of the Free Wesleyan Church of Atata. The cost for the newly constructed church is estimated at more than 200,000 pa'anga. Emma Vea for Television Tonga News.
No confirmation has been made on whether the Prime Minister's office has received a letter of resignation from the Minister of Finance and National Planning, Lisete Akolo, after an official letter directed him to submit his resignation. The Minister of Finance and National Planning, Lisete Akolo, was directed in a letter from the Honourable Prime Minister Lotivano to resign from his portfolio as Minister for Finance and National Planning. The letter was given to the Finance Minister on Monday this week, and the decision is based on the Prime Minister's disappointment in his performance on how he carried out his duties. In the letter, the Prime Minister also raised his concern over Akolo's reaction or response to Cabinet's approval on the 20th of December 2013 of the 5% increase for cost of living allowance or COLA for civil servants' salary. Furthermore, the letter stated that the Cabinet members, including the Finance Minister, were present at the meeting and made the decision after thorough discussions. However, the letter reveals the Prime Minister's disappointment that the Finance Minister told the media that he's dissatisfied with the 5% COLA increase and there are no available funds for it. Furthermore, Akolo raised his concern to the media that it might have an impact on government operations. One option raised by the Finance Minister to get funds for the 5% COLA was to offer a redundancy package, but for him, it's impossible. However, the Honourable Prime Minister said Cabinet Ministers have worked out and agreed that the 5% COLA can be funded from the current budget for 2013-2014 without affecting the government nor the country. Furthermore, the Prime Minister's letter states that legal advice was sought from the Attorney General and the Solicitor General regarding the legal perspective of transferring funds within the current budget through votes to the country's reserves. It says such action of money transfers within a budget is legal when following the legal procedures. The Prime Minister also raised in his letter a concern of government over the hard work and commitment made by the public civil servants in order to achieve the government mission and objectives for the good of all. It states that inflation has tremendously increased, and although the 5% COLA is not enough, but it's the best they can do to help the public civil servants at this stage. Radio Tonga News has tried to contact the Finance Minister and National Planning, but to no avail. A gale warning is now enforced for Niuafo'ou, while a gale alert is enforced for Vava'u and Ha'apai. The Director of Tonga's Met Office, Ofa Whanunu, revealed this to Radio and Television Tonga News this afternoon. Although the tropical cyclone alert was cancelled yesterday, this morning it travelled 180 kilometres southwest of Niuafo'ou.
The tropical cyclone advisory number 12 has been issued around 12:30 this afternoon. In the last 24 hours, the cyclone had been slow moving around to the west of Vava'u. Overnight, it started to track northwest and then north now towards Niuafo'ou. So the latest position around 10 a.m. this morning, we had the cyclone around 180 kilometers southwest of Niuafo'ou, still moving north at around 5 knots. The cyclone is around the wind speed around 40 knots, gusting to 55, which is a slight increase from last night. It's still moving north at 5 knots, intensifying, but it's expected to become slow moving again in the next 24 hours and then turn southeast and move back towards Vava'u, Ha'apai and Tongatapu areas. So at 12:30 this afternoon, we've upgraded the warnings to a tropical cyclone warning, with gale warning now in force for Niuafo'ou and gale alert now in force for Vava'u and Ha'apai groups. We have strong wind warnings out for Niuatop-Tapu and Tafahi, as well as heavy rain advisories in force for the Niuas. So that's the situation now. The cyclone is moving towards Niuafo'ou right now. We expect the winds to reach 25 to 35 knots probably sometime later today or tonight. It could reach 35 to 45 knots. We also expect a lot of heavy rain there, and could have some flash flooding due to the heavy rain, with rough to very rough seas around the area of the Niuas and Vava'u, coming to developing further seas, further, becoming very rough around Vava'u and Ha'apai in the next 24 to 48 hours. I think the National Disaster Office will probably give some further advice on this, but just from the point of view of the meteorological services, it's very important to stay tuned to the radio, starting from now up to tonight and for the next 2 days. You will be prepared when you receive the latest information. So just for today, it's probably a good idea to start preparing now while it's still daylight, As you know, it's more difficult to prepare for a cyclone in the nighttime. As we head into the next 24 to 48 hours, it's important that we are ready to face whatever conditions that we will receive from Cyclone Ian, starting from the newest and all the way down to the rest of our island group. Thank you.
The Director of Tonga's Met Office, Ofa Whanunu. Meanwhile, Radio Tonga News correspondent in Nuafo'o Pentimantanga says the residents on the island have started preparing for Tropical Cyclone Ian by closing up windows and securing roofs and doors. He says the island experienced heavy rain last night up until this morning. As of this afternoon, he says the weather is cloudy, windy and a few brief showers. Moreover, the Nuafo'o Chief Police Officer calls on the residents to prepare well for the tropical cyclone. A Fijian relative of Tonga's monarch, Ratu Devita Mara, denies rumours that he was offered an island in Tonga by His Majesty King Double Six. Speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News, Ratu Mara says various media reports which said that he was given an island are not true. When asked if the rumoured island referred to an island on the northern side of Nuku'alofa called Makaha'a, he replied that the island is owned by Her Royal Highness Princess Piloleva and he has nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Survey and Land says registration, ownership or even transfer of ownership of land must come through them. So far, they have received nothing regarding this matter. Ratu Mara sought refuge in Tonga in 2011 after being alleged of trying to overthrow the Fijian government. Fiji's former land commander, Bita Triti and Ratu Mara were allegedly charged for trying to overthrow the Fijian government, in which Triti has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Ratu Mara has been residing and employed in Tonga for almost 3 years. The Minister of Agriculture, Food, Forestry and Fisheries, Seng Star Saulala, reminds his staff to carry out their duties according to the work regulations and law in order to protect the work they do. The Agricultural Minister made the call during a prayer service to mark the beginning of the Ministry's operations for the new year 2014. Sinlatu tells you more.
Honourable Seng Star Saulala thanked his staff for their hard work and commitment last year. 2013 was a big year for us. I believe you were all aware of the outcome. The export of different local produce increased. The money allocated to us from government has been paid back, and I believe it's the only government money which has been paid back. I thank the committee which monitored that fund. Some of the ministers have approached me, asking to borrow some of our funds for their constituencies. I've informed them to follow due process. I know some of the staff face hardships during that time, but I encourage them to follow the process, regulations and law, because it will guide them and protect them in their duties. I am also glad to see people are benefiting from the hard work you are doing. He also wished the staff well for this year and says they are planning to implement new initiatives within the ministry. I believe this year the Fisheries Department will be breeding marine organisms. We are also planning to bring in cows from Vanuatu. This year, Tongatapu's show will be called Pacific Week of Agriculture. Regional agricultural ministers and sponsors will be invited to attend the show. I hope that Tonga will still be on top of the agricultural and fisheries sectors like before. Vava'o has also requested to hold its agricultural show during the celebrations for His Majesty's birthday. The Agriculture Ministry's prayer service was led by Reverend Falematapule Lomu at the ministry's headquarters at Tauliki. It was attended by the CEO of the ministry, Losaline Ma'asi, directors of various departments, and the staff. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
His Majesty's Cabinet approved the appointment of Salote Vaimoana Taukolo as the new CEO for the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour. The Cabinet decision was made last year, December 20th, while her appointment as CEO was effective December 16th. Mrs. Dakolo's appointment to the post comes after the former CEO, Tadaf Moyaki, was appointed as the CEO of the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. Mrs. Dakolo has worked in the Ministry of Commerce, Tourism and Labour for many years and has been appointed to high-ranking posts within the ministry. And that's the local news. Pacific is up next.